Hello and welcome to another Caseware webinar. Today I'll be looking at the latest changes courtesy of the ep4.06.04 release for Accounts Advanced. My name's James. I'll be your host today. I'm an education and media technician. I'll also be joined by Kieran May, who's one of our education and media consultants. Kieran will be running through and presenting today, showing us all the latest changes courtesy of that ePack. We'll be running a live Q&A session at the end of today's webinar, so do save your questions until then. But if you do think of them during the webinar, just use the button shown on screen to send them through to me, so the Q&A button there. You'll also see there that we have a chat button, so what I suggest is use the chat for any technical issues if you've got any issues with the webinar itself, and I can respond to you immediately on those if there are any issues there. A recording of today's session will be made available shortly after this goes live, so that will be available on both our Caseware help site and our YouTube channel as well under the webinars playlist. Perfect. Now to hand over to Kieran, who will be going through the presentation.
Perfect. Thanks very much, James. Good afternoon, everybody. So the ep4.06.04 ePack update and the ep4.06.04 TPack update have both been released this morning. As you can see from this screen, today we're going to be focusing on three key update areas. We're going to be looking at some updated prior year adjustment mapping and how that is going to impact your statement of changes in equity or SOCI. We'll be looking at an additional strategic report section of those of you that have very large entities, and also be looking at an overview of the changes that have been made to the financial instruments note, specifically within the IFRS template today. Before I do start with the main agenda, some of you on the webinar today may be looking for an update in relation to IXBRL that's talking about the 2022 taxonomy that was mentioned in the ep4.06.03 webinar a few months ago. As of this time, HMRC are still unable to accept submissions using the 2022 taxonomy, so we have not yet released this. We will update you through all of the usual channels when we have any further information relating to this. So let's carry on with today's agenda. So as per IAS 1, it's relevant for FRS 101, 102 entities. Prior adjustments resulting from the correction of errors should be disclosed separately from those stemming from a change in accounting policy. Therefore, across the templates, we've added some new rows to our statement of changes in equity to allow this. As you can see from this extract on screen, within the assign mapping screen, there are three options when mapping prior year adjustments through profit and loss reserves in this instance. So as you can see, we've got the H03.49 section of the mapping showing here. We've got H03.49.0050, which should be used for prior adjustments that relate to any corrections of errors. We've got H03.49.0051, so that second option there, that should be used for any prior adjustments that are due to a change in accounting policy and would therefore result in a restatement within your financial statements. And we've also got H03.49.0061, which is prior year adjustments that are due to the impact of the change of accounting policy, and therefore no restatement would be required. From this SOCI extract, so we just use the figures that I've got from that assign mapping screen. We can see how the profit and loss reserves adjustments are separated above the comprehensive income for the year section. So as we can see, we've got the prior year adjustment for correction of errors. That's coming through from H03.49.0050. The prior year adjustment in respect of change in accounting policy, so that's the restatement option. That's coming through from H03.49.0051. And then finally, the impact of change in accounting policy, that's the H03.49.0061 option there. It's just a little bit of an update on how that's going to display within your statement of changes in equity. The next thing that I want to speak about is the updated strategic report section. So in the strategic report, we have added a section for non-financial and sustainability information. Now, as I said right at the beginning, this applies to very large entities. There is now a text input section that's been added to help disclose this information. Now, for the majority of UK entities, this only applies when turnover is greater than 500 million and the total number of employees are greater than 500. This only applies to entities with accounting periods that start on or after the 6th of April 2022. I say it's going to apply to most limited companies, but say look at all of your different entity types just to make sure this is going to apply. As you can see from the screenshot here, this section is added to the bottom of the strategic report. So you can see here section H, and it has the description, non-financial and sustainability information statement. So this is on the accounts prep table, that final screen before you go through and build your financial statements within a caseware file. Now, if we do decide to turn on this section, obviously we could use the disclosure override drop down in that column to turn that section on if we require it, and it will appear very simply like this within your accounts file. So it's very simply a header, non-financial and sustainability information statement, and a green user text section. Obviously, it's a green user text section, as with any area within the strategic or director's report. We can type in our own text or copy and paste in our own text accordingly, just to disclose the information that is going to be required. So that's our additional strategic report section. I say just to confirm, that is for accounting periods that start on or after the 6th of April 2022. Until you have a caseware entity that falls within that criteria, that option will not appear within your accounts preparation table. So if you are looking for it, it is for entities that starting after the 6th of April. And then the final amendment I want to go through is going to be the updated financial instruments note, and specifically for the IFRS template. As you can see from this extract on the accounts preparation table, we've broken down the various options, and you'll notice some changes to all of these sections once they are within the financial statements. As you can see, we have split out accounting classifications and fair values, financial risk management objectives, market risk, value at risk or VAR analysis, foreign currency risk management, interest rate risk management, other price risks, credit risk management, liquidity risk management, and fair value measurement. I'm now going to jump into a live set of accounts just so we can see those sections in a little bit more detail. So I've jumped into case view. I'll just wait for everything to finish executing script. We can see on the document map on the left-hand side here, all of the different splits. I'm just going to quickly scroll down through those different options. So as you saw, we've got the accountancy classifications and fair values tables. I'll talk more about the updates to that section in just a second. As we scroll down, we've got the financial risk management objective section with our green user text box, same with market risk. Our VAR analysis, we've got our tables and various standard text in place. Our foreign currency risk management, once again, tables and standard text. Interest rate risk management, we've got some text, also got some green user text sections to input your own content if required. Other price risks and credit risk management, user input as always, just to bring those sections through. And we've got the liquidity risk management, once again with all of the tables that you would expect to see. And finally, our fair value measurement section, giving us all of the various tables to disclose the information that we would potentially require. And you can see then that goes down onto the next note. So the updates that we have, if I go back up to the top where we have our accounting classifications and fair values table, before the optional fair value level columns were all set to print regardless of whether there are any entries entered into these cells. So we've got the fair value options over here on the right hand side. These will now only print and show when the tick box is ticked up at the top of the table. So we have this option here, tick to show the fair value columns. If we aren't disclosing that information within our financial instruments note, we can simply untick the tick box, and you'll see this section will completely disappear from the instruments note and won't print with any blank values if we're not choosing to disclose this information. Within the foreign currency risk management section, the interest rate risk management section, and the liquidity risk management section, The headers have been updated so that only the relevant headers will print for both the current and prior year values. Now, I know this has been a little bit of a problem for some users where some of this information has been printing out where we don't need it to. We have updated all of the conditions here to make sure that everything is calculating through as it should be, and only the information that needs to show will be showing when we enter in the relevant figures into these tables. As I said, we have amended a few of the calculations within the tables throughout the financial instruments note, just to make sure all the headings and text are consistent with the rest of the financial statements, so that the note no longer looks any different to any other areas of the accounts. We had some situations where some of the text was a slightly larger size than what it should have been, and the calculations weren't pulling through all the information that should have been there. So going forward, that should now all be fixed, and there should be no presentation issues within the accounts. Speaking of presentation, though, within our financial instruments note, we now have the ability to adjust the width of the columns and table headers using enable editing mode. Now, for those of you that are familiar with enable editing mode, you're more likely to be Caseware super users or users that have had some more in-depth Caseware training. For most sections of the accounts, you have the ability to change the column widths within that mode. It wasn't previously, you weren't previously able to do that within the financial instruments note, but we have seen more and more that this is a requirement for a lot of our users. So we have now unlocked that option, so we can go through and change it. Those of you that aren't familiar with enable editing mode, it is a password protected option. You go to view at the top left-hand corner and select enable editing. I'm not going to give the password out today. Ask any of the super users in your team, and they will be able to give you the password for that and bring that through. Hang on, I've got caps lock on, that's what's not working. There we go. I say ask one of the users that will have that information so you can unlock this section. Within any of the notes here, we can go into the table itself, and we have these blue bars up at the top of the screen here where we can then adjust the various notes to get the widths accordingly, so we can fit in all the areas of text or maybe adjust the column widths of the figures so it just looks a little bit better within your financial statements. But say ask any super user within your company or firm, and they'll be able to help you do that if you don't have access to that already. So those were the main areas that I wanted to go through with regards to changes from the EPAC and TPAC for today. We have seen a couple of questions come through. Two that I can see straight away I'm going to answer now before I quickly hand back to James. The first one being, how do we check what EPAC you currently have installed? So, if you've got an IT team that are installing your EPACs, how do you know that that install has actually gone through? And so you can then apply any updates to your Caseware files. It's really nice and simple. The first thing that I would do is I would navigate back into Caseware working papers. So I'm jumping into working papers here. Within working papers, I'm just on my digital dashboard at the moment. Remember, if your digital dashboard is closed for whatever reason, you can close it down from the tab down at the bottom of the screen. You can reopen your digital dashboard at any time by just selecting this little house or home icon up towards the top of the screen, and that will load back in your digital dashboard for you. So that will just load in now. Now, once you have got the digital dashboard up on screen, to see what is the latest EPAC that you have installed, all we do is go to the Other Docs option towards the top right-hand corner. So that will be appearing just underneath your entity name. From Other Docs, you then want to go down and then select Support Information. Now, on this support information screen, you'll see all of the accounts that you have installed. So you can see I've got all of the accounts templates here. And for the AccountsAdvanced template and the AccountsAdvanced IFRS template, we can see that I have installed from EPAC, ep4.06.04. As I say, it's been released this morning. And then the TPAC update, ep4.06.04T. So once you've taken the update that has been released today, that it should be what's showing within your support information within the Other Docs screen. So if you do need any more support with that, obviously contact the Caseware support team in all of the usual avenues. The second question that I've seen come through is how we can update the mapping within your current files. Now, obviously, with there being a TPAC release, there are some new map codes that are going to be coming through to your files. But how do we update our caseware files? Now, it's a really, really quick and easy thing to do using the copy components tool. Those of you that haven't used copy components before, it's really, really useful. It's used to copy information either from a template or from another caseware file into the file that you're currently working on. Now, this method can actually be also found on our help site. There is an article of how to update a client file mapping structure. So if you search through on your help site, you'll be able to find an article, but I will quickly go through that process now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that the file that I'm in at the moment doesn't currently have the latest map codes brought through. So I'm going to copy into this file from the template. So it's very, very simple. From within Caseware Working Papers, I go to File up at the top left-hand corner. And from File, I can select Copy Components from this left-hand blue menu. Once I've selected the Copy Components option, as you can see, we've got three options. We can copy into this file, copy into a brand new file, or copy into an existing file. Because we're going to be copying information from the template that we've installed, I'm going to be copying into this file. Once I've set copy into this file, I can copy in from another caseware file or a recent file from my recent file list. But for today, I'm going to be selecting copying in from a template. Now you can see on my screen, I've got all of the accounts templates, all of the audit templates installed. I'm going to be selecting the AccountsAdvanced IFRS template as I'm working on an IFRS set of accounts at the moment. Select next down at the bottom once I have the appropriate template selected. And I then have the option of which components I want to copy across from the template. Now, if you've never used the copy components functionality before, it could well be that the all components option will be selected by default. So the all components radio button up at the top of the screen there. We'll never want to copy across all components, as that will clear out all of your data. We are just going to want to select some of the components from the template. So we'll select the following components radio button. To copy across the new map numbers, we want to tick select the groupings/mapping tick box, so the second tick box down. And then on the right-hand side, we want to select the mapping tick box. Now, we don't just want to click next at this point, we do want to change some of the options to make sure we are pulling through the correct information and not losing any custom mapping that we perhaps have within our current caseware file. So we go into options over on the right-hand side. From the options, we then want to make sure we select the merge source files mapping structure. So basically the new mapping numbers are added, but it won't delete out any of your mapping that you have at the moment. We then want to tick select the option for map numbers that are the same in both files, replace the following properties. The most easy thing to do here is to use the select all button on the right hand side, but we want to deselect the name and extended description options. So the top two options up at the top of that list. Therefore, within your current file, if you have renamed any of the caseware default map codes, it's not going to change those back to the default. So you'll know exactly where you're mapping to, and it'll be what you're used to within your file. I would then also tick the tick box down at the bottom to autofill your account properties using the mapping properties. And as soon as you've done that, we can click OK at the bottom there. And at this stage, we then can select next down at the bottom of the screen. We're not going to need to clear any components when doing this. These are options that we're not going to be bringing through from the template, so that's absolutely fine just to click next and then finally finish. Now, when I click finish, that's going to take a few seconds just to roll through. It shouldn't take longer than a minute or so. But at this point, I think I'm going to hand back over to James, just see if we have had any other questions come through.
Perfect. Thank you, Kieran.
Right,
Yeah,
no problem.
I had a couple more questions come through. The first one is in relation to our prior adjustments, are you able to split the prior year result between the restatement and the originally stated amount?
Sorry, so just to understand the question, so this is for the point of view purely for the statement changes in equity mapping that's coming through. So it's the adjustment through reserves. In relation to how that's going to appear within the primary statement, for example, I suppose you could split out using separate map codes. I think I may need a little bit more information about exactly what you're trying to achieve. It could well maybe that we need to pick this up maybe after the webinar and just go through that in a bit more detail, exactly what you want. But there's certainly ways that we can split things out in greater detail if required.
No problem. There was a second question on here. It wasn't to do with this update particularly, but it was in regards to the ISA 315 and when that was coming out. The There is guidance on the help site. It just says on the scrolling banner there that the ISA 315 compliance company audit update is available and can be obtained by contacting our support team. So if you give them a call, they can provide you with a bit more information as to how to get your hands on that. Wonderful. We haven't had anything else come in yet, so I think we'll go through the roundup process. Are you happy with that, Kieran?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Fantastic.
Cool. Okay, we'll just get the slides back up. So if you do think of any other questions during this last bit of the webinar, do pop them in the Q&A section, and I'll answer them for you. Okay, yeah, just a quick reminder that we do have more upcoming webinars on our website, caseware.co.uk/events. It's not just hosting webinars there. We also put up listings of our live events as well, so any conferences which are upcoming. So do be sure to check that out. We also have a Caseware LinkedIn client services page. We post exclusively education content there. So any of the upcoming webinars, in addition to getting started guides and e-courses we might think that you might find useful. And we also have our Caseware Client Services YouTube channel, where we post all the recordings for our webinars as well as quick vids, and they're all listed in easy to find playlists there. So do be sure to go and check that out and subscribe for more content. While we've been going through this, we just go through one of the questions that's come in here. Will we be advised when we can use the 2022 taxonomy?
So 2022 taxonomy, as I said earlier, it hasn't been released yet because HMRC can't accept those submissions. As soon as we have an update for you, we will notify you all the usual channels. There'll be links on the help site. There'll be emails sent out to you of exactly when that's going to be released. But as things stand, we don't have any other information at this stage.
Perfect. Yeah, and just back to the slides there. So just a quick heads up on our help site. It's no longer with KB, so it's help.caseware.co.uk. Jump on there and you can find all of our latest articles, in addition to news announcements, for example, when the What's New videos come out, so you can keep up to date with what's happened for that month within Caseware. If we go to the next slide there, fantastic. We don't have any more questions that have come through just yet. We will get back to the client who asked us in regards to the relation to the prior year adjustments. We'll pop you across an email there. But we have a great rest of your day and all the best.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.